We're excited to have Rock Hill's mayor join us this morning, John Geddes. He is always the first to grab that 7 a.m. slot. And Mayor, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
We got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to start with some great news. The city of Rock Hill, really Rock Hill Southside, has received $500,000. It's going to be allocated in the state budget to support the storm recovery efforts in Rock Hill's Southside. Some great news that came out yesterday.
Yeah, it is wonderful news, and we're very thankful for this. We're very thankful for John King and the other members of our legislative delegation who got this inserted into this year's budget. This money will come to the Housing Development Corporation. Corinne Sferraza is the head of our Housing Development Corporation. Everybody's smiling because how can you not smile when you know Corinne? And this is, the continuation of efforts that have been ongoing since that storm. Prior to this earmark or this money coming in, we were able to leverage some gifts of supplies from Leitner Construction and others. A gift from the Community Funders Group of some $50,000 plus or minus, and then money we redirected from our HDC towards this issue. And all of this money, this $600,000 in value, when you count the in-kind stuff as well, all of this is being spent in the south side of Rock Hill with the people that need it the most. And that's what we charged, what the city council charged our staff and others were trying to figure out is, you hear this term heirs property, right? And heirs property, just a simple definition of heirs property is really our history in South Carolina. You had families that 100 years ago or thereabouts owned a piece of property, and then when someone passed away, there was no will or there was no estate opened at the probate court, so there was no identification of who the new owners would be. And then they had children, and then they had children, and some of those children moved to New York or California or North Carolina or Georgia. So today you don't know who owns the property, and the real has ownership. And the real problem with that is that means that person living in the house can't sell the property. They don't have clear title, can't borrow against the property, so they're sort of stuck. They're living there, and they have a roof over their head, but they don't have the free possessory interest in that property, legally speaking. So it means that they can't, when there's a storm, those individuals can't go borrow money in order to fix their house. They can't get insurance coverage sometimes to protect them from what may happen. And this is something that's rife all through South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, the older states in our union, probably in every state for that matter. And the real problem is when you have an incident like this, they've got no way to get fixed. Usually it's people that are elderly, on fixed incomes, no longer working, living in a house with maybe brothers or sisters, and just getting by. These are usually people you see in line at Hope House or at the Manor House Pantry or other places where they're getting food because the little bit of fixed income they have every month they have to use for medicine and their power bill and the other necessities. They had a storm come through their neighborhood. There's no way to fix that house. There's no way to put a roof on it or to put windows, repair windows or hail damage. But that's what this money has gone to through the Housing Development Corporation.
Well, Mayor, I think that's so enlightening because you guys sat and you truly listened to the community in the time of need. You heard all different sides. We know the SBA loan folks came in and helped people apply if they were eligible. We know that insurance people have been probably vultures knocking on doors trying to get people insured. But to your point, there are still gaps. And this $500,000 plus is really going to help those that truly need it the most. And I love to see that these gaps are getting filled.
That's a great point. I think it's even deeper than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are the poorest of the poor. I mean, and I don't mean to disparage any individual who's getting help when I say that, but you have no out. You have no way to go to a bank and borrow money to fix your house like everybody in this room could. You have no ability to call an insurance company to come fix your roof like anyone in this house, in this room could. You are stuck. and you don't have anywhere to go because you're on a fixed income. And as you know, Alice, you can't afford to rent anywhere else.
You are in that stuck cycle.
You're in the stuck cycle. And the bigger story here, to me at least, and the money we're very appreciative of, it's going to allow us to do about 60 homes all said and done. But we've already done 15 or 20, and the reason is because of companies like Leitner Construction, Fraser Roofing, Vision Roofing, Lake Murray Construction, Nelms Roofing, Merritt Roofing, Blue Collar Roofing, and Siding by the Best. These companies donated their labor. We raised the money to get the shingles, to get the windows, and these companies said, we're going to go out and we're going to do the roof, and nobody's going to pay us for that up to now. And that's, to me, the real story here.
Great community partners.
It's Rock Hill.
Coming together.
It's Rock Hill. It's the good town, and another instance where the good town steps forward. In some fashion, we see the people of our community loving on the people of our community, the poorest of the poor. And then we see the General Assembly, thanks to our legislative delegation, saying, we know this community. We know that if we give money to this community, it's going to be properly spent. We don't have to worry about that. It's a time of need, and we're really in that area of funding where we didn't qualify for FEMA funds. Yes, there are some low interest loans, but if you don't have the money to pay for your food, how can you pay a loan back?
Yes.
And you don't have clear title to borrow against. So we're very appreciative of our legislative delegation. We were worried that we were going to get to a point where we couldn't get to all of these folks, and now we believe we are.
Well, you can still apply for those small business association, SBA, Small Business Association loans. If you qualify, their loans are available. You have, though, until the end of this month, July 29th, to fill out that application. You can go to sba.gov/disaster if you qualify for that. If not, Mayor, there's some form of communication, correct, with the homeowners who still need to have some work done that will benefit from this $500,000. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
We've gone out and done so the York County Emergency Management, to their great credit, set up a website or a damage assessment survey, and everyone could go in there. We were able to access that to go in and find these houses that, were not going to get help from any existing funding source. Went out and visited those houses, looked at it, did the background checks that you need to do, did all the things that our Housing Development Corporation does on a daily basis. We've inventoried that in our community, and we think we've accomplished or identified all that would be eligible for this segment of the population we identified, and we believe now we're going to be able to finish that.
Fantastic job. Again, $500,000 allocated in the South Carolina state budget to support the storm recovery efforts in Rock Hill's Southside. We're going to switch gears now. We're still speaking with Rock Hill Mayor John Geddes. Mayor, we have an opportunity here in our area, Rock Hill and Fort Mill, to kind of weigh in and understand what the long-range transportation plan is for this area, starting really now through the year 2055. Again, 2055 and beyond. This is put on by RFATS, Rock Hill Fort Mill Area Transportation Study. There are two opportunities this week to kind of for the public to attend and learn about the plan and maybe suggest something that others have not thought about. You can do so tonight, Tuesday, July 16th at the Rock Hill Operations Center, starting at 6 to 7:30. Mayor, walk us through what we're talking about here, other than people just weighing in saying we need more roads and more ways to get around.
Yeah. So RFATS is a regional organization. It's a planning organization. And what we do on RFATS, we have representatives from the city of Rock Hill, the county of York, Fort Mill, Indian Land, Tegakay, York County, and we look at the bigger picture, if you will. And so that's where you see all the work happening on the interstate right now. The Fort Mill interchange right there, 160, right where Baxter is, previously up on Gold Hill Road. Next is down on exit 82, the Cherry Road Sullivan's. Those are big ticket items. Those are $100 million projects all day long. Used to not be, but they are now. Those $100 million projects are set up to try to move traffic more efficiently so that you can have an expectation of when you arrive at places. We will always have traffic. We're not going to make the traffic go away. We can't build more roads, because when we build more roads, some communities put more houses there, and it defeats the whole purpose, and it
point.
drives me crazy. But we all have a way of what we want our future to look like, and it's not fair for me to say what I think about what others do, right? But we have traffic. We're going to have traffic. Our goal should be, how do we make our traffic work as efficiently as possible so that people have a reasonable idea of the time it may take to be certain places. What you mean by that is you go from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road. That way, if a car accident happens, the road's not shut down. You know, when you go onto the interstate, you try to figure out how you have more lanes dumping into the interstate, and making sure that, you know, I-77 doesn't become a long parking lot. That's where we need to think about all these residential houses everybody wants to build. It doesn't help us when we do that. And I think some of our communities within the study area have started to figure that out, and I'm appreciative. We're all appreciative of that. We will be more appreciative of that 30 years from now than we are now, because, you know, we're going to have a lot of people in our state at 30 years, 1 million more people, I think the number is. They're going to drive, and we got to think about how does our traffic system work, so that, you know, it's not as bad as it is now in certain areas. So I think a lot of what we see is work on the interstate to make these interchanges happen. This area does include Indian land. What's going to happen on 521? What does that look like? There are going to be other pressure points that you can sort of model out. But you're right. What we need is the public to show up and say, you know, there's these other areas that maybe are a little further south. We could get ahead of them. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a big proponent of looking at the Porter Road intersection. When you see the economic development coming on Porter Road with Stiva, an Austrian company that's building. If you haven't been down Porter Road lately, please do. I mean, you see job creator after job creator coming there. Well, what does that mean for us? How do we do that? From a city perspective, it's wonderful because we're using those property taxes to rebuild the south side of Rock Hill. From a planning perspective, how do we look at that regionally, and what does that mean 20 years from now?
Well, again, tonight is your opportunity. We know you complain about roads. We see it on social media all the time. We hear it in conversations. Well, this is your chance to complain to the folks, or maybe suggest a better way. Provide a solution. Yes, that's what it is. They do not want to hear a bunch of complaining.
Sure we do.
But if you've got a solution, or if you want to bring attention to one of the roads that you travel on and say, hey, have you thought about this, or this is what I experience, give it to the folks that plan all this. Again, you've got 2 opportunities this week. Tuesday, July 16th, that's tonight, 6 to 7:30 at the City of Rock Hill Operations Center. And again on Thursday, July 18th at Unity Presbyterian Church in Fort Mill. That's at 303 Tom Hall Street, again in the town of Fort Mill. Rock Hill Mayor John Geddes, we covered a lot of ground, as we always do when you're in the studio. Thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.